today we're going to be going through Agile API development. And as we're going through development, API development, any type of development is a team sport. As we're going through Agile, there's a lot of coordination and there's a lot of handoffs that have to happen. And really what we try to protect is time, is people's time, and we try to make people's time as efficiently used as possible. So we're going to focus in on three personas. We're going to focus on Siobhan, who Swetha is going to play, and that's the developer. So I'm an API provider. I work with API Connect, and I'm going to develop APIs. Then Swetha is also going to play Marcia, who is the API tester. So my job is to find bugs, right? I want to find bugs before the users find the bugs. And then I'm going to play Will, who's the operations lead, and my job will be to build a DevOps pipeline. So I'm going to show the DevOps pipeline and some of the hooks that API Connect has, so that I could show how to integrate those and really how to help automate and protect a lot of people's time. So that's a little bit about what we're going to be going through this session. We're going to take it all the way from end to end. We're going to take it from the developer creating the API as the tester is creating the test cases, then the developer checking into SCM. In this case, we're going to use GitHub. Then we're going to kick off the DevOps process, which is going to go through linting, deploy to a temporary catalog, run some automated tests, and then finally go to dev. So the idea that, what we're going to go through is by the time it lands to dev, I know that it meets my governance standards and it hits all the check boxes and it's consistent, as well as it's tested, so that we're not breaking our consumers in dev. So that's going to be our end goal. And we're going to role play, and we're going to play the various different roles, and we're going to walk through what each individual sees. So that's kind of an overview of what we're going to go through this hour. And Swetha, I'll hand it over to you to go through what the developer and what the testers see.
Thank you, Nick. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining our session. Great choice, I would say. So without much delay, let's get started with the demo part. Like as Nick was explaining, right? Like the whole Agile API development, Agile is something that has turned the software world upside down, and API development is no exception to that, right? So now I'm going to be playing the API developer first, Siobhan's role, and I'm going to quickly show you using API Toolkit, which consists of API Designer, something called local test environment, and our CLI. Using all three, I'm going to be developing and rapidly testing APIs. So as you can see, this is the API developer UI that you're seeing here. This is a local IDE that's installed on my laptop, and I have connected my designer to a local test environment. For those of you who haven't heard of local test environment, it is a lightweight API manager that is running locally on my laptop. I have already installed LTE for the purpose of this demo, but I can quickly show you what it has. As you can see, it has everything that you would find on an API manager. So I have a lightweight API manager running. I have a data power gateway. I also have a data power API gateway. I have the database, Yoo-hoo, and LUR. So basically, I can create and test APIs using local test environment and designer iteratively and rapidly. So which means I don't have to depend on a connection. Like I don't have to connect my API manager to an API Connect manager instance. I can comfortably and independently work out of my laptop without having to depend on an internet connection as well as, API Connect Manager instance. So going back to the API designer, I have already created this API again for the purpose of this demo. But you all know the drill, right? Like how we create an API. It could be an open API, 2, 3, SOAP. Okay, my connection is expired, so I'm going to quickly reconnect it here. So you know how we develop an API. So you can either, it could be of any flavors, right? Like it could be Open API 2.0, it could be 3.0, SOAP, GraphQL. We support, multi-form API management. You can create from an existing service, a new API, or you can import an existing API, which is what I've done here. So once, let's say let's say I've done creating this, developing this API. I just want to quickly take a minute here to highlight some of the things that we have done to our API editor experience, which is we have completely revamped, as you can see, our editor UI here with adding a tree-like navigation on the left. So that helps me to traverse the OpenAPI spec document very easily. So if I just want to be, let's say I want to go to a path, right? I'm just going to click on it. It takes me to that part of the document. So this makes it very easy for me as a developer to quickly traverse and look through the document. And similarly, I can easily switch between the form view, which you just saw, and the source view. And again, it takes me to that particular part of the document which is selected on the navigation. And we've segregated the tabs based on the OpenAPI spec. So basically, the design tab has everything and anything to do with your OpenAPI spec. And the gateway tab, again, here has your policies and all of the IBM configurations here. And we have the test tab, which is the interactive debugger, which you've already seen and probably might be using a lot, which helps you to easily troubleshoot and debug any issues in your API assembly, like in your API execution, and helps you to optimize too. And we have the endpoints tab, which gives you information about the base endpoints. And finally, the Explorer, where you get to see the documentation of your API, how that would appear on the developer portal. So let's say as Siobhan, I have finished developing this API, right? And I have auto-published this, which is a simple toggle button here. And now I just want to make sure that this API is working fine. So for that, I'm going to be testing the get Pokemon call. Looks fine, right? But if you take a look at the get Pokemon call, I have added a Redact policy here. But when you look at the response here, even though I've got a 200 status code, none of my response fields have been redacted here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly show you the trace tab, where the canvas here highlights the path that got executed, right? Like get Pokemon. So looks like everything has gone through, but my redact is something that's not working, as it should, right? So I have a drop-down here, which helps me to parse the data power logs and take me to that part of the policy where, I think there is an issue. So which is basically the Redact policy, right? So let's take a quick look at it. So you see, it says the executions is 0, which means basically nothing is redacted. And What I meant was I want my count to be redacted, but looks like I clearly can't spell count here. So that's actually the issue, because I don't have a field called CONT, and that's why none of my fields, none of my response has been redacted. So let's go back to the policy. And make a change here. So as you can see, Redact is a very powerful policy, helps you to redact sensitive fields even when you're testing. And we're using the powerful JSONata, so it's very easy to use it, and helps you to redact or even remove the fields that you think are very sensitive, like your any personal information, SSN, and things like that. So now that I have saved, made changes and saved, I wasn't sure if you noticed, my APIs, once I make a change and save, gets auto-published. They automatically republish, which means I don't have to go back and republish it again and again every time I make a change. So as a developer, that's so helpful and time-saving. Now let's go back here and try testing it. Oh, yes. See, now it's worked. So my count has been redacted for me. And this didn't happen previously, if you remember. You could actually see the number here. Now, one thing I would like to call out is this interactive debugger is the easiest way for a software developer to look at the data power logs. So, you can take a look at the full trace or any particular part of the trace using this dropdown. And we also have like the advanced view and the basic view. So, you can pick and choose the level of information that you would like to see. This has this log has everything right from your pre-flow assembly rules to your actual assembly invocation. And it comes with latency and memory. So that gives you an idea as a developer as to which the policy is taking a lot of time, and helps you to optimize if a policy is taking a lot of time. So now I am good with what I have here. So it looks like my API development is all good. And I'm going to check in my code in my Git repo. So for that, I'm going to commit this to my demo API's Git repo. I'm going to say I have updated. So you could either do this via the GitHub desktop app, or you can always do Git commit from your CLI. So it's up to you. Now let's quickly check. I'm sorry, this is taking a minute, but I can come back to this and show you that my commit has been successful. So now that I've done developing my API, I'm going to switch roles here, and I'm going to be the Marsha, the API tester. So now that I'm Marsha, I have launched the automated test APIs from my API manager, and I'm going to create a test case for the same API to make sure that my the API is behaving as it should be, because getting a 200 status code and looking at the response payload is just not sufficient, right? Like, I need to make sure the behavior is intact, because I'm going to be adding more code changes to this API spec as we go along. And I need to make sure my tests, my API behavior hasn't changed because of that. Okay, so let's get started with that. So I have the mock backend that the development is using. So I'm going to use the same mock to start testing. Now, this is a simple HTTP client where I'm just adding my endpoint API path here and then making a call to that to look at the response. As you can see, you get the basic information in the screen, which is your status code, latency, fetch, and the total time. Now, all I have to do is click on generate test, and I'm going to be giving this name and save it to a test suite that I had already created. So let's do that. And in a second, as you can see, my test cases are generated automatically for me. So what the automated test APIs do is they look at your API semantics and they create assertions based on the API semantics. And as a tester, I can, I don't actually need to know the code here. So everything is UI based. So everything is visual. So this composer allows me to add more assertions by simple drag and drop. So I don't have to actually look at the code if I don't want to. But we also give you the option to work using code here. Like if you want the code view, you get the code view, and this is based on XML. And to be honest, this is one of the nicer looking XMLs I've seen. So you've got this flexibility. So as a tester, I have, as you can see, how easy it is for me to generate test cases and test assertions and add more test assertions if I think the generated ones are not sufficient. Now, for the purpose of this demo, let's say I am okay with the assertions generated. Let's click on run test just to make sure that my assertions are running fine, and it looks like they are. So I am actually good with the test case that I have here. So I'm going to save. And publish this test. So this is basically like a version control. So published version, would be the one that I would want to use for my CI/CD pipeline. Working copy is basically like your drafts, where you can keep adding more test assertions and make changes as you need. So for now, I'm going to publish this, saying I'm good with my test case. So as you can see, I'm good with my test case, and I'm going to be now handing off to Nick, who's going to be taking it from here. I know I've got to show you my Git commit, but I'm going to come back to you in a second for that. Over to you, Nick.
Thank you so much. So a couple of points that I really wanted to highlight that Swetha was showing is, let me make sure that everyone can see my screen. Desktop share. All right, now you can see the infinites. Is how independent she was. So what I mean by that is, as a developer, everything was local to her. She could test locally, she could develop locally, she had a runtime locally, and really all she was doing was, after she did it locally, she checked in. And the same with the tester. All the tester really needed to know was the API interface. And when she wore that second hat of the tester, that's all she really needed to know, was just the interface. And then she could go in and create her tests off of that. Now, there are a couple of handoff points that I care about. So the first thing I care about is this is our GitHub repo. So as Swetha is checking in to GitHub, I'm going to use that, right? Whenever there's a check-in, I'm going to go ahead and make a build. And I want her to have, we all want to have that independence, right? So the goal of this demo is to show the three roles, how independently each one can work, and then the handoffs between each of the three roles. So from me to Swetha, I'm the DevOps person, right? So I'm going to act as a DevOps pipeline. I don't need to know her code. I don't need to know her APIs. She's one of a million developers from my point of view. And I like her and I trust her and I respect her work, but she's one of a million, right? I have a million APIs. I can't possibly know all of them. Similarly, I can't know every test case for every API. That's not me, right? So our handoff is just this GitHub repo. And all I really know is some developer checked in something to this GitHub repo. Also, what I know, if I go to the APIs and if I go to test and monitor, if I go to the test and monitor bit, if I go there, I know that she sent me a URL, and I forgot where it was, but she sent me a URL, and that I've copy pasted here, and that URL is she's created a series of test suites, the tester version of her. She created a series of test suites, and she gave that test suite as a URL. So in order to execute that test suite, all I have to do is I have to hit that URL, and then I get to see the output. So now I have two trade-offs or two handoffs. Handoff one is some developer somewhere checks something into some GitHub repo. So all I need to know is the list of GitHub repos. Then some tester somewhere has created a test case, and they've given me the URL that says, in order to run this test case, here's how you hit it. So the first thing I'm going to do, if I go back to our image, is I'm going to be listening to source control. And I don't care what's in there, doesn't matter to me. I'm going to be listening to source control. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lint it. So I've also worked with our architecture team, and they've created a series of architectural rules. Anyone that is creating an API, it has to follow this pattern, right? The company name / the business unit, the LOB that you work in / the entity that you're working in. You have to do that, right? So I don't know if everybody knows, so I'll show it. IBM has created an Open API validator, which is a linting tool, which is open source, which I'm showing here. So also in the presentation, I'm going to show a series of links. Just want to let everybody know those links are in the slides that we're going to distribute. So please don't feel like you have to write down the URLs quickly. But so we have a linting tool. So whenever someone checks something into source control, I want to integrate with that linting tool. And I want to make sure that it follows my architecture standards. Now, why do I want to do this? Selfishly, I want to do this because I want to stop being in meetings. I want to stop getting in meetings where I have to show the Open API spec, get feedback, change it. If I hook into the DevOps pipeline and I say, every time anyone checks something in, it's going to go through effectively an automated ARB. Happy days, right? It's one less meeting. It's one less thing that I have to go for. So then, as the DevOps guy, I'm going to say, all right, let's take that Open API spec, which I have because she checked it into source control. Then I'll run it through my linting tool. And if it violated a rule, I'm going to break the build. Send Swetha an email and say, hey, you didn't have the right path parameters. Then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to say, all right, I at least know that we follow the linting rules. What I can do, and I made it myself a cheat sheet. What I could do is I can now publish that API. So there's two ways that you could, there's actually three ways that you could publish an API. One is through the designer that she was showing, the toolkit. Another way is through the command line interface, which I'm showing here. And then there's a REST-based interface that I could also use to publish the API. So I'm going to go ahead and use the command line. And just so that everyone knows that I'm on the up and up and acting honestly, I'm going to go into manage here, and I'm going to go into sandbox. And as you can see, there's no APIs products. So I'm going to go ahead and publish that API. So this is saying, hey, API Connect, I want to publish the account API that I pulled from source control to this instance in this org in this catalog. So let's go ahead and do that. Yay, we published. Again, I don't expect anyone to trust me. Therefore, I'm going to go ahead and refresh my screen, and I'm going to show you that it got published. Happy days. Well, let's wait for it to refresh. Doesn't go quick enough. Oh, there we go. There's my account API that I just published. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, just because it's there and it works, just because it's there and it passed the validation doesn't mean it works, right? And I don't know the test cases, and I value the tester that Swetha was pretending to be, and I want to run those test cases. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run through the test cases that Swetha has created. So I'm going to issue a curl command, and there's nothing special here. I'm issuing curl command, but I could use anything. So I'm going to issue a curl command. What this does is this reaches out to API Connect, that test and monitor, that test case that Swetha had created, and it's going to hit a REST API which says run through that test case. And this is so important here, is as the DevOps guy, I don't know what's in those test cases. And quite frankly, I could care less, because that's not my job. My job is to just say, did I run through the unit tests? So by hitting this URL, that kicked off and that ran all of the test cases that she has created. So now my rule is this is the output. After I hit that, I got this output, and I could say, all right, we ran the test case, the test suite called Pokemon. It ran 2 tests, and 0 of them errored out. At this point in time, if there was an error, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to break the build. So I deployed to a temporary catalog. Then I ran through all the service level tests that Swetha has created. Then if any one of those fail, and I don't need to know what they are, I'm going to break the build. If it was successful, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to my other catalog here. So this sandbox is just a playground, right? And I don't have any consumers in sandbox. I do have my consumers in dev, in my dev catalog. And I am so tired of my consumers yelling at me every time any developer pushes a change because it broke one of their test cases. So I want to protect dev at all costs. And I want to make sure that it ran through and was successful for all the test cases before I hit dev. I did that, right? I did that by hitting this endpoint, and that endpoint then gave me the results of the test case. Again, I don't care what the test cases are. Then, if that's the case, I'm going to come in here through the CLI, and I'm going to publish to dev, where I actually have consumers. So now, just so that we know we're not playing smoke and mirrors, you'll now see the account product in dev. There we go. It got published. It's there. It's ready for my consumers. So now at this stage, when the Pokemon product or the account product or whatever product hits dev, I know a couple of things. I know that the architects aren't going to yell at me, because I've enforced their rules for each and every build. I know that my consumers aren't going to yell at me, or I have a high degree of confidence that my consumers aren't going to yell at me, because I've passed the SLTs. I know I've created a set of unit tests, and I've ran through those for each and every build. And this is also good for Swetha, because now as the developer, from the developer point of view, if the build was successful, she can go home, right? She could go home. She could take care of her family. She could be with her family and not, go home, get a call a half hour later that says, you broke this consumer. You got to go fix it. This is messing up the timelines. She has confidence, right? So this is good for her. It's also good for the tester, because when the tester goes into test and monitor, creates their test cases, creates their assertions, and then checks and then adds that to API Connect. Well, because in my DevOps pipeline, and I'll go back, because of in my DevOps pipeline, I'm checking and I'm doing their unit tests for each and every build, they can go home too, right? They can go off, I don't have to wait for this developer to check in the code. Then after they check in the code, then I got hours of work to do to run through all my test cases. It's all automated. It's all a part of the tool chain. So really the important parts that I wanted to show off are the hooks. The hooks are, because API Connect is based off of Open API, I can run it through any old linting tool, one of which IBM has created, the Open API Validator. Because I have the REST API as well as the CLI command, I can automate this. Because test and monitor can, she can add the unit tests, and then I can hit those and run them from the CLI, and I could just check, were they successful, yes or no? I know the testing is there, right? And then the other hook is, now I could publish to dev with complete confidence. One thing I did want to show is, say you don't like the CLI command. Say that you want to do curl for everything. Fine. One thing that we have is APIs. So one of the big pushes for API Connect has been, any button that you can push, anything that you can do through the UI, there should also be a corresponding API for it. And that way we can automate the API development. So not only is there a CLI command, but here would be the API that you would call. So I could say https://my server, and then I could call this REST API with my org and my catalog to publish that same product, if you didn't want to use the CLI. Both of which get you to the same means. It's just two ways of doing the same thing. Also, I wanted to show this documentation here. Swetha gave me a URL. This URL here. Happy days. How am I supposed to call that? What am I supposed to do? Well, we have documentation, and this is what we leverage in order to create our curl command, where we create a post, we send it our API key, we send it our secret, and then we send it some options. So I didn't particularly care to look at all the assertions, although I could toggle that to true and see all the assertions she's done. And I also put it in a JUnit format, which matches this here, so that I can parse that. And I could just look at these fields, the error field, the failure field, and if nothing errored out or failed, then go ahead and push the build to dev. So that's what we had for the demo, and some things that we wanted to go through is helpful forms. So you want to go from dev to production. We have a white paper here on trusting and testing your APIs. This is going to walk through the test and monitor that Swetha demoed, and then I also integrated with from the DevOps pipeline. This is going to go through another white paper for AI ops, and how we could automate that DevOps pipeline. And then we have our Open API survey. So we have a survey out at this link, and you'll get this in the deck. And while we have the stage for a little bit, we have a survey out on Open API 3. So if you have a couple of minutes, we'd love it if you took our survey on Open API 3 and gave us some feedback and really kind of help shape everything we're doing. And then finally, these are the links that I took you through. So I didn't expect anyone to be in their browser or recording to feverishly be typing away. So anything that I showed that I thought was relevant to the demo, the GitHub repo for the Open API Validator, the API Connect APIs, which is going to be this one here. Also the API hook, that's going to be this, so that you could do the test and so you could automate your unit tests in your DevOps pipeline. How do I do that? That documentation is here. And then the last one, which is really fun, is we also have a open source GitHub project of Nick. You walked us through a demo, and Nick, you showed us the hooks, but where are the scripts? How do I take that and extend that myself? This GitHub page has a bunch of commonly used scripts that you could use as an accelerator, that you could use that would walk through similar processes to this. And there's a bunch of different scripts about, changing owners. There's, publishing stuff. There's the consumer org scripts. There's a bunch of scripts in here, and it's super helpful. So with that being said, I think I'll hand it back over to Swetha, and we will take any Q&A.
Thank you, Nick. I know Nick was talking a lot about the API hooks. I would like to quickly show you all where it is on the test and monitor screen. Just to let you all know where to find it on the UI, which I missed showing during part of my demo. So here's where you can actually find the API hooks. So there is a setting icon on the top right. So if you click on that, takes you to this page where you can actually create hooks for your test suite. So we had already created an API hook for this Pokemon test suite. And this was the hook URL that Nick used to run the test. He made a call to this API hook to run the tests that are part of this test suite Pokemon. And another thing to note is each of these hooks is secured with an API key and secret. So you would have to generate an API key and use that as part of your call in order to make a call to that hook. So this is a completely secured calling of your hooks and running the test case. And with that, I think we have covered what we wanted to as part of this demo.